If you're an art fan, the name DALI probably conjures up images of melting clocks, giraffes on fire, but also an incredible amount of artistic precision. And precision is what's applicable in the case of the DALI Cupid entry-level bookshelf speakers. For the Absolute Sound, I'm John Quain. So DALI is actually an acronym in this case for the Danish Audiophile Loudspeaker Industries Company. They're a company that's been making loudspeakers for over 40 years now, from floor-standing models to wall-mounted designs. And the company's speakers are, as one would expect from a Danish company, they're well-rounded, they are balanced, definitely balanced, and of course, stylish. The question is really, would you fall in love with the DALI Cupid speakers? First, some of the details. The Cupids are priced at $600 for the pair. That's a pair of passive bookshelf speakers. That is to say, traditional stereo speakers versus the array of powered or active speakers that contend in this space nowadays. They're also relatively small. They're just about 5.5 inches wide by 9.5 inches high and a little under 8 inches deep. And they weigh less than 6.5 pounds. So again, pretty diminutive. They're two-way speakers with a rear port design, so you need to give it a little bit of room. You don't want to have these speakers crammed on a desktop with a lot of materials around them, for example. And they have a 4.5-inch woofer and a 1-inch dome tweeter. A crossover point is about 2100 hertz. More importantly, the frequency range they're rated for is 63 hertz to 25 kilohertz. That's kind of an acknowledgement that there's some roll off on the lower end. So if you're a big pipe organ fan, you're going to miss some of those lower resonances, which is to be expected on diminutive bookshelf speakers in this price range. On the other hand, the DALI Cupids are capable of plenty of volume, well up over 100 dB if you so choose. So there's loads of sound pressure there for an office, a bedroom, or a den. One caveat I'd like to mention, especially if you're considering a compact stereo system and doing a Steve Martin, let's get small kind of approach. These are not the most efficient speakers in this size range. They have a sensitivity rating of about 83 dB. So that means you should not skimp on amplification. Something on the order of, let's say, 100 watts a side or better. The company gives a recommendation range of 40 to 120 watts a side. I'd say err on the higher end. The overall sonic profile of DALI Cupids is light, yet pointed. They deliver a natural sound, a word you're going to hear over and over again from the company, and they are notable for their excellent transients. Very remarkable, very transparent, balanced sound. Living with these speakers, I really noticed that they come into their element at lower sound pressure levels, which is quite remarkable, even down around 65 dB, a volume level that at most levels, most speakers are barely coming into their sweet spot. The Cupids also present an open, yet not too dispersed sound stage, so that it's not so picky as to be distracting, but it still conveys the recording engineer's original intent. However, they do need some time breaking in the early stages of listening to them. There was some added sibilance I found in vocals, and its incisiveness, those great transients, they can be unforgiving on some recordings. Think low resolution streaming stations, for example, something from Pandora and Steely Dan's FM. It really came across as too digitized, particularly on the high end where the vocals became tinny and metallic. Note this, keep the Cupids covered up with their grill world. So there are tremendous benefits of this sonic profile from the DALI Cupids. Well, let's go over them listening to actually a particular album of covers. It's an album called Wish I Were a Carpenter, and it features a lot of their hits done by different artists. And it gives you an idea of some different examples of how these speakers will perform. So there's the shimmering cymbal crash on Show and Knife's version of Top of the World. That seems to be extra sustain, and it really brings out the female vocals here. It does quite a good job. The upper frequencies also are well managed in the acoustic guitar, for example, in Sonic Youth's version of Superstar. And you hear the subtle effects in the background and the slide of the fingers along the frets. Even the little added synth noodlings in the background, whether they need to be there or not is another matter. And also, there's really great enunciation on some of the instrumentation. Some of the bass lines are really drawn out instead of jazz and rock fusion. And if you think of Dishwalla's number on that album, it lacks some of the deep sonorous bass until you crank it up a little bit more. Overall, really balanced speaker. On classical recordings, especially string instruments, these are a wonderful set of speakers. The DALI Cupids do a fine job rendering some of the details of woodwinds and string instruments. There are moments when I think of recordings that actually are a little sterile and they lack some of the warmth, and the DALI Cupids don't bring extra warmth to the table. An example is the Emerson String Quartet's version of Bach's Art of the Fugue, that recording. Again, not a great recording, and you'll hear that through these speakers. That's how good they are. On the other hand, if you're looking for precision in the high end and you really want some of that pristine detail, these speakers will deliver. Good example of that is Quain 2, that record, which was remastered into a high-res version. The track I'm thinking of in particular that really demonstrates this is The Loser in the End, that song from it. It's very tight on Taylor's drums and percussion, so you get to hear all of that. But the thing that really stands out is Brian May's pure upper register guitar notes. They're faithfully registered here. They do not come across as being harsh. And compared to other bookshelf speakers that emphasize really the mid-range usually, these speakers really get those higher frequencies correctly balanced in the music. And they come across, again, precise yet not harsh. So think of that kind of music that you enjoy. So what's the bottom line with the DALI Cupid speakers? Certainly the naturalness of these speakers, the musicality of them is going to appeal to a lot of different listeners who like different genres of music, especially if you're looking to add speakers in a smaller room, let's say a den or an office or even an office waiting room. And they are certainly budget oriented at $600 for the pair. On the other hand, if you're looking for more presence and you're looking to really handle streaming services, you kind of want the convenience of just using a smartphone or a laptop to connect to a set of speakers, then you probably want to consider an active or powered set of speakers instead in this price range. If you found this review helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our video channel. There's also a newsletter from the Absolute Sound, and there's print. We love print. Please consider subscribing to the magazine. For the Absolute Sound, I'm John Quain.